Can you let me know when the live stream is started? Thank you. Good morning. I'm Councillor Diane Donaldson, and I'll be chairing this hearing of Subcommittee B of the Licensing and Public Protection Committee of Birmingham City Council. Before we start, can you all please mute your microphones for the moment in order to improve the sound quality whilst I outline the procedure. Can you also please turn off your cameras with the exception of the committee members unless you are the person speaking. This is to reduce bandwidth. Could everyone attending today's meeting please put their mobile phones on silent and ensure they're situated in a room or environment which is free from distractions or any unnecessary noise emanating from radios, TVs, etc. Thank you for that. I'm speaking slowly and clearly so everyone can follow. It is vitally important, for what I hope are obvious reasons, that those attending the meeting and making representations are able to hear me and members of my subcommittee and officers. Any distractions brought to my attention could result in the meeting being suspended temporarily or to another date and time under the regulations for these types of meetings. I also confirm this is a public meeting and is therefore being live streamed on the City Council's website in order that the general public can view it. I advise that this meeting will be webcast for live or subsequent broadcasts via the Council's meeting YouTube site, details of which can be found in the agenda, and that members of the press public may record and take photographs except where there are confidential or exempt items. Members are reminded they must declare all relevant pecuniary and non-pecuniary interests arising from any business to be discussed at this meeting. If a disclosable pecuniary interest is declared, a member must not speak or take part in that agenda item. Any declarations were recorded in the minutes of the meeting. Could I invite Councillor Sam Forsyth, I believe, wishes to make a declaration.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Councillor Sam Forsyth. I'd like to make this declaration, please. I know one of the applicant's legal team in a professional capacity. I know my learned friend, Mr. Craig, as he's another barrister. I know him professionally. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I just take advice from the committee solicitor, Joanne Swampilai? Will that impact on the decision-making process?
No, it won't. Katie Townsend will minute it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Joanne. Apologies were submitted on behalf of Councillor Mia and Councillor Forsyth was the nominated substitute member. Can I welcome you to this hearing for the application in respect of Ikigai 1266 Pershaw Road, Sturchley, Birmingham, B30 2XU. I'll begin with some introductions. My name is Councillor Diane Donaldson and I'm chairing this meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee. With me are other members of the subcommittee, Councillors Sam Forsyth and Adam Higgs. Also present in the meeting are the following officers: Licensing Officer Bapindra Nandra.
Good morning, Chair.
Good morning. Committee Manager Katie Townsend.
Good morning, Chair.
Good morning. And Committee Lawyer Joanne Swampilai.
Good morning, Chair.
Good morning. Could I now ask all parties to identify themselves, please? Firstly, the applicant, Duncan Craig and Kerry, and
I am
Reece
Reha
Press.
Surprise. I act for the applicant, Luke Bensley.
I'm Luke Bensley, the applicant.
And we've got Mr. Craig in the room with us.
Good morning, everybody. I'm
Good
just here to
morning.
observe. Ray will be conducting the hearing. Okay.
Okay.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. And next, those making representations. Tony Lowe. Good morning, Tony. Could you just introduce yourself so we can hear we've got the sound quality? Can't
Chair,
hear you?
I can't hear anything, Chair.
No, I can't. It doesn't appear that you're on mute, but there's no sound coming through, Tony.
Can you hear me now?
That's better. Thank you.
New technology. Hi, I'm Tony Lowe of 2 Twining Road.
Thank you, Tony. Right, could I now ask if any persons wishing to making representations wishes to withdraw their representations at this stage of the hearing? Take silence that nobody wishes to withdraw. So I'll assume that all parties have read and understood the Licensing Committee's procedural rules sent out with the notice of today's hearing. Please note that given the nature of today's proceedings, I may, in my discretion, amend the procedural rules to reflect the fact that this meeting is taking place online, but wish to assure you all that any such amendments will not impact on the party's right to a fair hearing. We'll be using the chat function in Microsoft Teams to communicate. One of the icons on your toolbar is a speech bubble. Click the speech bubble to go into chat. If you do not have access to the chat function for any reason, please use the raise a hand function to indicate you wish to speak. The button is usually fourth from the right on the toolbar. You can also, of course, indicate verbally that you wish to speak at the appropriate time. Can you all confirm that you have access to the chat facility by typing your own name now? Officers will also type their job title. The meeting will not proceed until you all have done so.
That's everyone, Chair.
Thank you, Katie. Please keep this chat column open for the entire duration of the meeting in order that everyone can follow the messages being posted in the chat. If any participant has dialed in on an audio telephone rather than Microsoft Teams, please speak now to confirm that you can hear and be heard. I don't believe we have anyone dialing in today. With the exception of the subcommittee members, please keep your camera off unless you're the person speaking. If there are problems with bandwidth which cause difficulties with the sound, I may, in my discretion, ask everyone to turn their cameras off in order that the meeting can proceed with everyone able to hear and be heard. Does anyone wish to make any preliminary points at this stage? If so, please indicate that you wish to raise a point by typing speak into the chat function or using the raise a hand function now. I believe nobody has raised any points. Thank you. I'll now briefly outline the procedure which we'll be following at today's hearing. Firstly, the licensing officer, Bhupinder Nandra, will present the report. Then the applicant will be asked to present their case. We're asking if this could be kept to approximately 20 minutes. Next, those making representations will be invited to present their case. We're asking if this can be kept to approximately 20 minutes. I can ask all parties to speak as slowly and clearly as they possibly can, because the officers are taking notes by hand for the minutes, and the meeting is also being live streamed on the City Council's website. If at any time it's somebody else's turn to speak, please mute your microphone and use the chat function to communicate if necessary. Please note that members of the subcommittee will be able to ask questions at any stage, but will try to do so at the conclusion of each presentation. Cross-examination by the applicants and those making representations will not be permitted unless the members consider it appropriate. Where questions are raised by members of the subcommittee or by those present, they must signify this using the chat facility set out on the right-hand side of the screen you're viewing this meeting on. The meeting manager will alert me if I do not notice messages in the chat. I will determine verbally or in writing on the chat facility the order in which questions are dealt with. So at any point in the meeting, if you wish to speak, please type the word speak into the chat function and the meeting manager will ensure that we come to you at the appropriate moment. If at any point you cannot hear or having problems with your internet connection, please use the chat facility to alert the meeting manager. I will then ask the person speaking to repeat what they have just said. It is therefore important that you use the chat function as soon as you're unable to hear the person speaking. It may well be that there is a problem caused by people still having their microphone or cameras on, which creates interference. I'll remind everyone, please mute your microphones and turn off your cameras when you're not the person speaking. Could I point out, occasionally it may be necessary for the subcommittee to take legal advice. At my discretion, I may ask all parties to wait in this meeting whilst members and the relevant officers withdraw to take legal advice using a separate meeting within Microsoft Teams. We will then return to this meeting and continue. Please note if any time the live stream being broadcast on the City Council's website fails, I will ask you all to mute your microphones and cameras and to stop speaking until the live stream is restored. If at any time this meeting goes into private session, the meeting manager will pause the live stream. Once the private part of the meeting is over, I will ask the meeting manager to confirm that the live stream has resumed before we continue. At the conclusion of the hearing, I will invite all parties to make a brief closing submission. Can I stress that no decision will be taken until all the evidence has been heard? At the decision-making stage, the members and relevant officers will withdraw from the meeting in order to determine the decision. They will go into a separate Microsoft Teams meeting. In the event that members need to clarify any point, you'll be telephoned by the meeting manager. The members will then make their decision. You'll be notified of the decision of the subcommittee within 5 working days. Yeah, I hope that was reasonably straightforward. So with that, can I ask Licensing Officer Bhapinder Nandra to present the report, please, as slowly and clearly as possible, please.
Thank you, Chair. Bar Ikigai Limited applied on the 13th of July 2022 for the grant of a premises licence for Ikigai 1266 Persia Road, Sturchley, Birmingham B32XU. The purpose of the report is to consider representations that have been made in respect of an application for a premises licence which initially sought to permit the sale of alcohol for consumption both on and off the premises to operate from 10 AM until 1 AM Monday to Sunday, to permit the provision of late night refreshment to operate from 11 PM until 1 AM Monday to Sunday, with the premises to remain open to the public from 10 AM until 1:30 AM Monday to Sunday. Other dates and times are specified in the application form. However, the applicant has agreed to amend the scope of the application with licensable activities to cease at 11 PM Sunday to Friday and 12 midnight on a Saturday, with the premises to remain open to the public from 10 AM until 11:30 PM Sunday to Friday and 12:30 AM on a Saturday. Representations have been received from other persons, which are attached at appendices 1 to 3. I can confirm as a result of the amended times, the representation at Appendix 1 has been withdrawn. The application is attached at Appendix 4. Conditions have been agreed with West Midlands Police and the applicant, which are attached at Appendix 5, with site location plans attached at Appendix 6. When carrying out its licensing functions, a licensing authority must have regard to Birmingham City Council's Statement of Licensing Policy and the guidance issued by the Secretary of State under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003. The licensing authority is also required to take such steps as it considers appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives. The options available to the subcommittee today are to grant the license in accordance with the application, to reject the application, to grant the license subject to conditions modified to such an extent as considered appropriate, exclude from the license any of the licensable activities to which the application relates, or to refuse to specify a person in the license as the premises supervisor. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Bhupinder. Would the applicant like to make their presentation now, please?
Good morning, everyone. I act for the applicant Luke Bensley, and the Ikigai is seeking license for the licensable activities, late night refreshment and sale of alcohol. Before I address the representations, I think it's fair to talk about why we changed the hours to 11 p.m. at night. The Birmingham's licensing policy talks about how conditions and licenses depends on the local knowledge of the premises. Ikigai is an established business in Birmingham and wants to extend to Pershore Road. After receiving the presentations, Ikigai Luke Bensley wanted to work with the community, wanted to address the concerns of the community, and this is why he changed the hours from 1 a.m. to 11 p.m. I will now talk a bit about the nature of the premises. Ikigai is a cocktail bar, and it has been in Birmingham for 2 years. The applicant, Luke Bensley, has been in the business for 15 years. And while I think it is fair to make a distinction between a cocktail bar, a restaurant, and a vertical drinking bar. 1268, which is the neighbour of our application, has been granted a license last week with the current hours of 10 in the morning to midnight at night for the sale of alcohol. I make it a point to say this because it has been granted despite the representation, and this is very important for the current application. Yes, Budabelli, the neighbouring license, is a restaurant, and there are meals and there are tables there. It is important to note that Ikigai is very much similar in the sense that the drinks will be served at the tables. It is not somewhere where drunk people can just go and ask for drinks. It is mainly based on cocktails. If I may invite you to the menu, which is on page... If I may invite you to look at the menu, which is on page 5, my supporting documents. These are only cocktails. They are about £10 per drink. And while this is not the exact menu of Ikigai Pershore Road, it is very similar to the one that we plan on implementing. The applicant has won multiple awards for his cocktails. He has won Best Drink at Birmingham Cocktail Weekend 2022. He has won the Best Newcomer Top 50 Bar. I make it a point to say this just to say it is not simply somewhere you can go for alcohol and drinks. He wants to show the art of how to make cocktails and the different types, different colours. This is how he earns his living. It is submitted that the current hours do not undermine any of the licensing objectives. He has a very good relationship with Birmingham, with his neighbours, and this is this exact attitude that he wishes to extend to Pershore Road. Ikigai is very, very small in terms of premises. It is easy to contain, and it is submitted that he intends to work with the neighbours as he has been doing to now. I will now address the different representations that we received. We initially received 3 of them, and the first one withdrew when we changed our hours to 11 at night. The second representation, which was from Mr. Lowe, there has been some developments in our email trails. Yesterday, Mr. Lowe contacted me again and changed some of his concerns, which I will talk about shortly. His concerns initially were about the late closing of the premises. It was about patrons leaving very late and being surrounded by residential properties. Mr. Lowe has responded to my email and has said that 11 p.m. is much more preferable Sunday to Friday and 12 on a Saturday is preferable to 1 a.m. certainly. About the patrons leaving, the Ikigai in Birmingham has always had prominent, clear, legible notices asking the customers to leave quietly and to respect the neighbours, and the applicant intends to do so as well at Pershore Road. About the Ikigai being surrounded by residential properties, and I've had a look at the maps and I've seen how close Mr. Lowe is to the rail of the premises. Ikigai and the current Ikigai that's open, it is surrounded by residents as well. From the bar, you can see the roofs of the customers, and Ikigai has built very good relationships. There has not been any complaint till yet in regards to noise, drinks, fights, no complaints yet. And this shows that he knows very well how to deal with neighbors around, how to have a business, as well as maintain the relationships in the community. The latest email from Mr. Lowe talks about the rear of the premises. So he has changed his concerns to only the rear of the premises, and he talks about how closing up and locking at night might cause him public nuisance and staff might exit from the rear of the premises. Alcohol will be consumed towards the rear, and he talks about how he can hear the customers in his own house. The applicant has obviously thought about this, and because he wants to work with the community and not against the community, he is very happy to change the hours of the rear, what time it's open, to only 10. And this is Sunday to Thursday, and the rear will be open until 11 p.m. on Fridays and Saturdays. Again, this is because the applicant wants to work with Pershore Road. He wants to make sure the neighbours are very happy and satisfied, and he wants to actually make them very good customers of the premises. And also, Mr. Lowe has also talked about how he does not want to, he appreciates anything that promotes quiet enjoyment of the property from 11 to 7 in the morning. I make it a point to say that there are only 4 tables at the back, and the applicant is very happy to limit it to 20 people. If Mr. Lowe is happy, the council's happy with it. Because 11 p.m. is a very good cutoff point. This is where regulated entertainment starts, and the applicant is happy to work with 11 p.m. with 10 p.m. on weekdays and 11 Fridays and Saturdays. If I may move to my apologies, I forgot one point. The applicant, he has not applied for regulated entertainment. It's only late night refreshment and the sale of alcohol. He is very happy to have the condition of no external speakers being there at the rear added into the license, so that Mr. Lowe feels a bit more happy with the current conditions and the current license. If I may move to the last representation that was received. The last representation that was received talked about the hours from 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. in the morning being a significant increase in late night noise. We believe that the fact that we changed our hours to 1 in the morning to 11 at night very much deals with this representation. And we also wrote to this objector to invite her to meet us at the venue, and she didn't show up. But this shows that we were willing to work with her, and we changed the hours accordingly. I hope that I have addressed the issues by 2 of the representations. The first one has been dealt with last week itself, and I am happy to take on any questions at this point.
Thank you, Ms. Sucras. Are there any questions from members?
No questions, thank you, Chair.
Okay. Councillor Forsyth,
No questions, thank you.
thank you. And is that all the presentations from the applicant? Would Mr. Bensley like to add anything?
Yes, please. If I may ask Mr. Bensley to add why Ikigai and why Persia Road?
Yeah, so obviously we have a quite successful business at the moment in the jewellery quarter. However, I'm looking to grow, and upon doing research of different areas around Birmingham, Sturchley seems like a place that independent businesses can thrive. There are several examples up and down Sturchley, and it seemed like the perfect place for a neighbourhood style cocktail bar. That's why I'm so happy to work with residents, is because the whole point of my business is to be an addition to the community, not a takeaway. Yeah, this industry is pretty much what I've lived in my whole life. So I've dealt with different businesses and different points of view on this, but yeah, the local community is definitely the heart of what I do. Yeah, I live quite local. I'm 15 minutes away in Quinton, so I'm not too far away from the venue, and I understand the venues opening up around where we are in Quinton as well. So yeah, I'm definitely receptive to any questions that there might be about the business. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Mr. Bensley. Are there any questions from members? Mr. Bensley?
No questions, thank you, Chair.
No, thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Right, so with that, we'll move on. With those making representations, I'd like to make their presentations now, please. Mr. Lowe?
Sure, certainly. I'll leave my camera if I may, as I'm just speaking quite close to my microphone because conscious that you might not be able to hear me. So I'll keep this brief because I think a lot of the matters have been covered, and thanks also for the contact from the applicants in relation to proposals to reduce the hours. Obviously, my primary concerns around this have been and continue to be noise after 11 p.m. Obviously, people do need their sleep, so anything that reduces noise is greatly received. I think it's just worth mentioning before I forget that the applicant for the neighbouring property, there were conditions placed on that with regards to noise from bins. So I potentially asked that was also mirrored in this application, as far as I understand that this is a cocktail bar and that there's not going to be bottles and such like, but during closing up, if this is going to be extending from say for instance an 11:30 finish, then obviously people can be banging around with bins and such like, so obviously avoidance of that would be appreciated. In terms of the hours, obviously that's much better to be in a position where in general we're talking 11 p.m, appreciating 11:30 closure with follow-up. Obviously being in a position where the weekend is then sort of closing at 11:30, again, not ideal, but it's again better than 1 a.m. and 1:30. So thank you again for the consideration as far as that goes from the applicant, and it's great to hear the general sort of ethos and attitude demonstrated around the entire position, because obviously someone working in an area is not quite the same as living there. So I'll concentrate really on the primary concern for myself, which would be licensed activities occurring outside the rear of the premises. Obviously, if things are occurring within the premises, then that's going to be absolutely contained in terms of noise because it's inside. We have nothing in the area which is directly local, which is outdoors, other than the British oak, which is audible from my residence. So my concern would be that something which is a couple of meters from my house is going to be highly audible. Again, appreciating the comments as far as keeping that reduced or closing that at 10 p.m. Again, that is an improvement. The general concern would be, and I'll try not to stray into planning matters here, but the area outside the bar to the rear, I would assume primarily would have to be used as a loading area and for bins. So when it comes down to it, in the small area that is available, I'm not quite sure how 4 tables are going to work in a bin yard situation, and noise from that area is going to carry extraordinarily easily in the local area. I mean, there's probably 6 flats above the commercial properties on Pershore Road, and the row of houses to the rear of the property, mine of which is the closest. Everything will be fully audible in terms of conversations. The noise just echoes around there. So again, I would have concerns as to how that is controlled. Obviously, if people are enjoying themselves, there's a certain level of exuberance which makes things louder, and that will resonate a long way. And we have obviously young families in the immediate vicinity, and again, I'm speculating. I appreciate that, but any volume of any sorts is going to disturb babies. So again, that would be my primary point on that. But as I say, overall, when it comes down to it, we have a position where the applicant is willing to work with the local community. So that is obviously helpful from our point of view. And I'm assuming discussions in future would be, again, as open as they have been in the lead up to this. So again, thanks for the amends to the hours. And I think rather than going on for ages and ages, I think I'll leave it at that, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lowe. Can I just open that up to members? Are there any questions from members?
No questions, thank you, Chair.
No, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, members. Now I'd like to take closing submissions in reverse order, please. So back to you, Mr. Lowe, just to make a brief closing submission, please.
I think I've covered most things there. So again, the remaining concerns are around after hours noise, closing up, and anything that can be done to reduce that, and the point of activities occurring outside the rear of the property.
Thank you, Mr. Lowe. And does the applicant wish to make a closing submission?
Yes, Chair. Mr. Lowe has raised the issue of noise after 11 p.m. and we've talked about how the rear will be limited to 11 p.m. on Fridays and Saturdays, 10 p.m. Sundays to Thursdays. As for the issue of bottles, so as it's a cocktail bar, customers are served in glasses only. They are not given bottles. There is no way for them to take it out of the property or to even bring any sort of noise issues regarding this. But we are very happy to go with Mr. Lowe's suggestion, which is to have the collection of refuse and the emptying of bins to take place between 10 in the morning and 10 at night.
Thank you.
And also he also made the point that there are flats upstairs, and yes, Ikigai knows that there are flats upstairs, and he has he's working with residents all around to make sure that there are no noise issues, whether behind or above the premises. And thank you, Chair. What a few last things. So we are very happy to work with, we have Mr. Lowe and the other premises, and it's submitted that the conditions and the hours are proportionate and appropriate for this type of small premises. We do understand that you have to undertake a balancing exercise with, at the end of the day, it is a business trying to grow, and we have neighbours who have raised their concerns, and we invite you to grant the application.
Thank you, Ms. Sucras. And with that, I will now ask all parties to leave the Microsoft Teams meeting, and the members and the committee lawyer and the committee manager will go into the private session, and the subcommittee makes its decision. You'll be notified of the decision of the subcommittee within 5 working days. Thank you.